Hello, this is Erin with the Joy in Pens and Paper, and I'm going to do a walkthrough of the pens that I used in April and what my thoughts were on them. I do have a few pens, full disclosure, that'll be kind of a lengthy conversation, but bear with me. um, so, the first pen and ink combination that I had in April of 2024 is the Noveler, I believe it's a classic rose gold demonstrator. And this specific pen is a collaboration with Noveler and Galen Leather Co. The ink that I had in this pen is Ferris Wheel Press Adventurine. This is a pen, or this is an ink that I was really excited to use because I realized I used it once and probably didn't have the best pen and ink pairing to really show off this ink. Now, this originally was not a fun experience, and I'll talk just a little bit about that. So, this pen I have a medium nib for and a fine nib. I started out with the fine and used it for a couple of days, was really struggling with what felt like the shimmer clogging, and I used the brass shim and I cleaned out the nib and all these other things, and it just was not flowing really well. So then and I was actually in the process of writing a letter to a pen friend, and I actually paused the letter maybe a third to a half of the way through, and I swapped out the fine nib for the medium. And it's a really simple swap. You can just place your fingers like so and twist, and it unscrews the entire nib unit from right inside here. And then you can just put the new ink unit, ink nib and feed unit in. And because it is a piston fill, as long as you don't tip over the pen body, you're fine. The ink stays in there. You just, pop the new nib unit on. And so I started writing with that, and I still was not thrilled with how the ink was coming out and just feeling like it was clogged. And so then I thought, you know what, let me try adding a little bit of white lightning. So I grabbed the white lightning sample that was gifted to me by a viewer. And I know from watching other videos that you just see the tiniest little bit of white lightning. And so what I did is I took a needle syringe, and without engaging the suction here, I did not suck anything up. I just put the nib in, and then put it inside, because I removed the nib unit again, and I put it inside the barrel and just swirled it around. But my anxiety got the best of me, and so I cleaned this off and I dipped it again into the white lightning, a little bit further, to a point where when I lifted it up, I saw that as the white lightning was going down the syringe, there was a little kind of bead forming. And so I put that in, gave a swirl, swirl, swirl. And then what I did is I put the nib unit back on, and using the piston, and I don't know if this is right or wrong, I made this up as I went. So if you have any feedback or tips, please feel free to share. But I engaged the piston fill, and I pushed the ink up and watched to see that the feed was getting saturated. And then I twisted the piston down, twisted it up again, saw the saturation, twisted it down, and then I went ahead and started writing. And my goodness, the difference that white lightning made. Oh my. And it made such a difference that after a few days of using that, I actually switched the nib unit back to a fine, and it flows beautifully. I was watching another YouTuber's currently inked in this month. They are also using Adventurine. I commented on their video and commented that I had put White Lightning in mine, and they shared that they did as well. So, if you have Adventurine and you are not necessarily leaning towards using it because perhaps it hasn't been wonderfully user friendly, I would highly encourage trying White Lightning. Um, so, in terms of my thoughts for this month, I went ahead and pre-wrote this because I really don't like writing my thoughts live, so to speak, on camera. I'm okay with doing the currently inked because I know what I'm going to write. I have it planned out, but this causes me some level of anxiety. So in terms of the pen and my enjoyment of this particular pen, on a scale 1 to 10, I'm going to give it a 9. I do really like writing with this pen. It's a good weight, it's a good girth, it's a good length. There's a lot of positives to this pen. The ink, I will give it a 6 because it took a lot of work to figure out how to enjoy it. And without throwing shade at Ferris Wheel Press, I think with all of the YouTube videos that are out there that talk about how they run dry, they might want to consider changing their formulation to be a little bit more lubricated. I'm so sorry, Ferris Wheel Press. I'm not trying to be mean, but I just have a bit of an opinion on the fact that I have to buy something else to make the ink enjoyable. And I'm saying that as someone who doesn't paint with fountain pen ink. Perhaps those of you that paint with Ferris Wheel Press ink, which I know that that's a whole other community, you likely love the fact that it runs a little dry. Maybe. We'll see. And then the combination of the two, because of the fact that I was able to get it to a good place, I am going to give that a 7. Now, this I did write with the fine nib, and it wrote really, really nice. It's a lovely distribution of shimmer. So I did end up really enjoying it. I think upon reflection, I probably did not need to dip the White Lightning in twice because I do see a tiny little bit of feathering. And I'll talk about that with another ink in a little bit. But I think White Lightning is a lovely tool to have. I'm very appreciative that I have it. I guess I'll pause there. Now, the next one is the Opus 88 in Halo Blue with an extra fine nib, and this is inked up with Yoseka Ceramics Tang Mise Blue. And it certainly is not a blue, it is a green, but it's a lovely green, and I love it so much. And I had this full at one point, and so I've used about half of the ink capacity in this barrel. This is one that I got middle of March, inked up right away, and just carried it over into April because I only had a short period of time, the second half of March, to use this pen and ink combination. The Halo Blue comes from the grip section, which is blue, and I really enjoyed this. I had certainly knew with this being an eyedropper pen and having the plunger here that you've got to open the plunger to release the ink into the feed. What I have learned about this ink for my style is it's best if I just keep the plunger open. When I think about logically the process of closing a plunger and perhaps the ink drying in the nib and feed or having an inconsistent flow, it makes sense to keep it open. Now, what that translates to is that I then don't carry it with me, so it's remained relatively stationary. But having said that, with it being stationary, that is a wonderfully saturated line of ink for an extra fine nib. It is the Opus 88 nib, which I think is number 5.5 or number 5 Jowo nib. I was looking it up, and I'm still learning about it. It has this softness, this bounce to it that's just so lovely to write with. And the reason I'm looking it up is I was hoping at Yosaka to get that pen in a fine, but they only had an extra fine in stock. Obviously, I love my extra fines. I'm not mad about it. I love it, but I'm interested in getting a different nib for that pen just because I want to experience so much more with it. The replacement nibs for an Opus 88 are not expensive. I want to say it's something around 17 or $20 to get a replacement nib for that. So I think what I definitely want to get a fine. I might even get a medium. Ooh, who knows? I might get crazy. So the pen I'm going to give a 9. The only reason it's not getting a 10 is because to me the when you have an eyedropper pen, the fact that you have to open the end, or when you have a vacuum fill, sometimes you've got to open the end to get the air in. Um, that's just an extra step. So for now, I'm going to give that a 9. It's not the same as many of other pens in my collection where it's just a grab and go, can take it anywhere. Um, I'm also going with a 9 because I've kept it on my island at home, which is nice because when I sit there in the morning to start my day, I can pick it right up and use it. And the ink is a 10. I love this ink so much. You can even see here versus the beginning of the month when I swatched it, it's so much darker, it's so much more saturated because I have been keeping the plunger open. So it's made a huge difference, but this ink is so beautiful and so complex and beautiful shading. And I can't say enough good things about it. The combination together, I'm going to give it a 9. That was a great combination. Now, next up is the Platinum Century 3776 in a fine. This is a 14 karat nib pen. This was inked up with a sample that I got from a viewer, Pilot Iroshizuku Yamabudo. The brightness of this pink, the magenta color, is not necessarily something that I would gravitate towards and purchase on my own. But oh my goodness, I love this color. It's been so fun to use. Um, there has been a little, I don't know, burping or whatnot, so some of the ink has come out, but it really easily wipes off um, the acrylic of the. I think this is acrylic of the pen. I did have the inside. There was a little bit of leakage, so you can see the discoloration here on this was the original color of that washi tape, and this is a hack that was shared with me by a viewer. I was hearing the clicking of the converter on the inside of the barrel, which I've got to clean the inside of this barrel. And so they said put a piece of washi tape there, and that really did resolve it. I'm probably going to be pulling this washi tape off, but I've really enjoyed using this pen and ink combination. It has been very surprising. So that I would say it is a very bright and cheery, saturated and well lubricated ink. And like I said, I really enjoyed this combination. It was phenomenal. So it's getting a 10 across the board. Um, Actually might be my favorite one for this month. Next up is the Esterbrook SD, and this is in the limited edition winter white color with an extra fine gold plated nib. And I inked this up with an ink that my husband got me for Christmas. It's a Wearingeul ink called Heimdall. And I think this is from the Writers series. Now, Wearingeul is another ink company that tends to run a little on the drier side, but not with all of their inks, which I think is also the case for Ferris Wheel Press. So I guess I've got to give the same shade to Wearingeul that I'm giving to Ferris Wheel Press. And I'm so sorry, Wearingeul. I love your inks. Your colors are beautiful. But again, if you've got to add a lubricant, perhaps there should be an adjustment in the formulation of that ink. But once I added White Lightning and I added probably too much, this is where I learned that my strategy is likely not the right strategy. So where I described dipping the syringe and then looking to see that it beaded at the bottom. For a converter this small, if there's enough white lightning that it can collect to almost a drop at the bottom of the needle, it's too much. Too much. You heard it here. You just need the tiniest little bit. So with that little bit extra, there was feathering, which you can see here. In my Hobonichi cousin, the feathering is not terrible. It's just a little bit more predominant here. So I did have to put some white lightning, and now it's flowing beautifully, but like I said, some feathering there. I will give the pen a 9, the ink a 9, and the combination a 9. I probably went a little gentle on this one, if I'm being honest, but I think I have a little bias in a good way with Waringal. I've got to explore that. All right, next up is the Ferris Wheel Press brush pen with a fine nib, and this is inked up with Robert Oster Fire and Ice. This ink is one of the OG inks that I got when I started my started my fountain pen collection about 8-ish years ago. I was seeing a lot of videos about how magical this ink is because of the red sheening, and it's a beautiful base blue. And I will tell you, I really love this ink. It's a really nice bright blue, and it has that little hint of red sheening, which is where the fire part comes from, but it's so not overwhelming. And one critique I have about sheening inks, generally speaking, for those really heavy sheeners, is they don't dry down. And even days later, if you swipe your finger across it, you get some smudging. Because of how minimal the sheening is with this ink, it dries down. So I give the pen a 9. This is my thinnest, maybe second, yeah, it is my thinnest pen. I do like a little bit more girth to write with. The ink is a 10 and the combination is a 10. I am finding that with this particular nib, I really like saturated, brighter inks. And I kind of described it as the shading of this ink is perfectly whelming. It's not overwhelming, it's not underwhelming, it is perfectly whelming. Now, second to last is my lovely, lovely, lovely Pelikan M400. I love this pen. It has a very juicy, extra fine nib, and it is a 14 karat nib as well. This I inked up with Diamine Brandy Snap. Oh, I'm just realizing I wrote Brand Snap. Brandy Snap, which is, it's an ink that I've had for a while. It was in the 2021 Diamine Ink Vent calendar, and then I recently got a full bottle of it, which I'm very happy about. I also love Brandy Snap in the Century 3776. So the interesting. So the ink I thought had an excellent amount of lubrication, and it had really beautiful shading. And I would say this is absolutely a do again combination for this pen. I think it also complements the coloring of the body really well between the greens and the golds, and some of the browns in the tortoiseshell. So that's definitely a combination I would do again. I'm going to give the pen a 10, the ink a 10, and the combination a 10. So it's tied with the Platinum Century 3776. And then last but certainly not least is the Pelikan M600. And this is also in an extra fine, and it's inked up with Jaerbon 1670 Stormy Gray, which is a very dark gray, can almost lean towards a black, but has really nice shading and it has a gold shimmer. I did not agitate it very much, so the shimmer was relatively minimal. Um, but even though I didn't agitate it much, it still at times had a more than a minimal amount of shimmer. So it was very interesting to use this. In my March pen and ink review, I if I recall correctly, I talked about that this pen might need a little tuning on the nib. It seemed like the nib was a little scratchy and catching on paper, and I used the brush shim on it, and um, I don't know that I necessarily expressed this very well in my video, but I was feeling a big level of sadness for this pen because it's I got it on a really good sale, but it's not a cheap pen. This ink was wonderful. It was well lubricated, it behaved so well, and all my thoughts of this nib being a problem went out the window. And I actually just re-inked it yesterday. So it has a fresh fill of the Jaerbon Stormy Gray. So like I said, it shifted my thoughts on the nib, and I really, really liked this. Now, I did a little something new this month. I did kind of a word. It's my first time doing it, so I'll make it look better in the future. But I thought for each pen, what would be a word or phrase that would draw me to, or would make me think of this pen and ink combination. So for the noveler, Ferris Wheel Press Adventuring, I'm going to say roller coaster, period. Roller coaster. End stop. For the Opus 88 and with the Ryosaka ceramics, I'm going to say longing. I longed to use it more, which I think speaks to my appreciation of that pen and ink combination. For the Platinum Century 3776 with Roshizuku Yamabudo, I'm going to call that Bright and Happy. Just bright and happy. Lovely, lovely color. It brought me joy to use it. And I found myself reaching for it frequently, even at work, for things that I do outside of my planner, which I'm sticking with a black ink for so far this year. Esterbrook SD with Warringal Heimdall. I'm just going to say White Lightning. That saved the day for that pen and ink combination. It really did. I was thinking very negative thoughts and adding that too much, but a little bit of White Lightning really, really saved the day. The Ferris Wheel Press with Robert Oster Fire and Ice. I'm going to say balanced. It was a balanced amount of color saturation and sheening, and it was a very classic experience. The Pelikan M400 with Diamond Brandy Snap, consistent is the word that comes to mind. It had a really nice consistent wet flow. It just no complaints at all. And then the Pelikan M600 with Stormy Gray was really surprising because, like I was sharing, I was highly concerned about the nib in that pen, and it was so surprising to have the experience that I did and have it be so positive. So that, my friends, is my pen and ink review for April of 2024. If you stuck around to the end, thank you so, so very much. I appreciate it. I hope that you notice from last month to current that the video quality has increased, that there is limited background noise. I am doing a lot of work on bettering my upload practice. And if you appreciate that work, I'm also including my Venmo in the description. Feel free to give me a thanks in whatever capacity that you might be interested in doing that. Love me some coffee, but it can also go towards new pen or new inks to increase the content for this channel. Or leave me a comment. And most importantly, if you haven't subscribed, go ahead and do that. All right, that's all the plugs I'm doing. I don't like doing plugs, but I've heard that that's what I should do. So I'm trying. I appreciate you all, and I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.